if you're right about Bitcoin, something that's now lasted something along the lines of 15 years. And so I've been trying to understand if, in fact, you're right and this is not just rat poison squared, but is not a thing, when it would be unveiled as not a thing.
That's predicting when speculation will end, or when the gambling instinct will go away, and when more people want to get out than are getting in. And I have no way of. If I thought I was good at that, I'd figure out a way to make a lot of money in different things. All I'm trying to do is buy good businesses. But the one thing I know is I didn't like chain letters when I was a kid. I thought, why in the world should I send along a chain letter to the next guy when I could start my own? I mean, I've seen people do stupid things all my life, and I empathize with that. I mean, people like to play the lottery. I mean, people love the idea they're going to make more money tomorrow, and it really drives them crazy if their next door neighbor is making a lot of money not knowing what they're doing, and they're just sitting there, and their spouse is saying, why is that guy getting a second car, and why are we missing this whole thing? And the gambling instinct is so strong. I like to bet on a football game if I'm sitting and watching. It makes it more interesting. But I don't think I want to make a living trying to bet against the house ever. I want to. If I were to get into gambling, I would want to own the roulette wheel and not be a roulette player. But well, actually, on my honeymoon, in my first marriage, we're talking when I was 21, and we went through Las Vegas population of about 20,000, a bunch of fellows from Omaha and other places. And I looked at all these people who had flown thousands of miles to do something unintelligent as fast as they could. I mean, they couldn't, they thought the dice were hot or something like that. And I thought, I'm going to get rich in this country. I mean, if that's what people do, I can be smarter than that. I mean, so I've watched it ever since, and it's fascinating to me. But the gambling urge is so strong throughout the world, and now you've created the perfect condition for it, where states are legalizing gambling, and you're not going to change the gambling instinct. But when the state has started sponsoring it, it's given a different there's a different climate than before.
What are your thoughts on gold/Bitcoin crypto?
Okay, well, that's a great question. I wrote a memo, back in 2010, and the title was All That Glitters. And I tried to put in everything I knew about gold. And I said there are two kinds of assets in the world. There are assets that produce cash flow and assets that don't. The assets that produce cash flow are things like stocks, bonds, companies, and buildings. If you buy one of those, it gives you cash. And you can value it. So I have a building. It throws off $1 million a year in profit. I want to sell it to Jeff. Jeff is open to buying a building. And he says, I'll give you $8 million for it, because at $8 million, I get a 12% return. 1 over 8 is 12%. I say, Jeff, that's not high enough. You have to give me 12 million, because it's such a high quality asset that an 8% return, 1 over 12, is sufficient. And in fact, because it's so well located, the income will probably go up and you'll get a return more than 8. We can value an asset that produces cash flow by having this kind of discussion. But if you have an asset that doesn't produce cash flow, you can't have a discussion. What are some examples? Diamonds, paintings, furs, oil, gold, Bitcoin. They don't produce any cash. So you can't say what the right price for a barrel of oil is or a bar of gold. And I remember that in July of 2007, oil was selling at $147 a barrel. And if you said to me, it said to people at some brokerage firm, well, why is oil at 147? They would say, well, it's a finite supply. We're using it up. And much of the supply is in the hands of countries that are adverse to the United States. So it's very valuable. 6 months later, oil was selling at, I think, 35, or maybe 47, something like that. So you take the fact that this supply is finite, and the fact that we may not make any more, and the fact that we're using it up, and the fact that it's in hostile hands, but how do you turn those qualitative elements into a fair price? And the answer is there is no way. And that is true of gold, and that is true of Bitcoin. So if I say to you, Jeff, because Jeff's a fan of gold, why do you like gold? He would say it's a store of value. And in tough times, inflation or panic, gold holds its value. Why does it hold its value?
Yeah.
Why has it? There's no linkage. There's no mechanism. There's nothing that makes gold a store of value other than the fact that people treat it as a store of value. And that leads us to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has no value other than the value that people accord it.
Perfect.